Right. And so, Glenn, you have seen this film, unlike the rest of us, so perhaps you can tell us, what exactly is it saying about torture and the hunt for Osama bin Laden?
Well, it's just a grotesque bit of agitprop and CIA hagiography and propaganda. It's really quite remarkable. It shows in a very clear way that torture played an important and valuable role in finding Osama bin Laden, something that all forms of officials in the United States government have very unequivocally said is false. So it not only shows torture as being valuable in enabling one of the most significant events and the event that triggers huge amounts of national pride in the United States, which is the killing of Osama bin Laden, but it does so using blatant falsehoods. The other thing about it that's really quite amazing is the entire world is viewed in this film through the perspective of the CIA. So everyone who works for the CIA are good, noble, heroic crusaders trying to keep us safe, kill violent terrorists, avenge the 9/11 attacks, and almost every Muslim and Arab, with very few exceptions, are shown as being these dark, shadowy, menacing, evil figures. It's a one-dimensional cartoon in which the United States generally and the CIA specifically are pure good, and anyone they do violence to is pure evil. It's really dreck of the worst kind of stuff that Hollywood produces, but it's menacing because it was done in cooperation with the CIA, which had its hands deep in this film and reflects its viewpoint rather uncritically in a way that's mass entertainment. What the film shows is that there's a detainee who's repeatedly and very brutally abused, and he's the one who ultimately gives them the existence and name of this courier, not the real name, but the name that then lets them find his real name. And the first 45 minutes of the film, right after they show audio tapes of 9/11 victims crying for help, is devoted to torturing this particular detainee, who then gives the name that on which the entire rest of the film and the entire successful search for bin Laden hinges. So just impressionistically, there's no way anybody would walk out of that theater who was not already familiar with these events and thinking anything other than the reason we got Osama bin Laden is because we used waterboarding and other forms of torture. Nobody's suggesting that it's wrong to show torture. The CIA did torture. It is part of the record and it ought to be shown. What people are objecting to is the fact that torture was shown as being vital and instrumental in extracting crucial information that then led them to Osama bin Laden, which, as you indicated in your review, is negated by the historical record. The FBI has said that's not true. The Senate, chairmen of Senate committees have said that. And so, of course, the filmmakers now want to escape from what they did, which is show torture as being highly valuable by claiming that the critique is simply that they showed it and they're defending simply showing it. Nobody's criticizing them for showing it. People are criticizing them for glorifying it and leading to people to believe that it should be supported.
Yeah, I mean, you do wonder, President Glenn, whether under President Obama, the idea of American exceptionalism, the right, basically, of America to do anything it wants anywhere in the world, I mean, it's gone completely crazy then.
Well, if you look at polls, it's really quite remarkable. If you looked at polls 5 years ago about President Bush's executive power theories, the theory that we're at a war and therefore he has the right unilaterally to simply detain or eavesdrop on people without courts, huge numbers of Democrats, progressives, and liberals would oppose those policies. Here we are 4 years later, 5 years later, and you have Obama not claiming, as Jesselyn said, not just the right to eavesdrop on or detain people, but to target them for assassination. And polls show that 75 to 80% of Americans support that, including huge numbers of Democrats. So this idea that we are at war with this extraordinarily, unprecedentedly evil enemy, and we have to vest the power in the president to decide whatever he wants in total secrecy with no transparency as to how to stop it, absolutely has become much more pervasive because now it's bipartisan under President Obama. And I think you see the torture debate as well reflecting that, because that's the premise in which it's grounded, that these are horrible enemies that we have to do everything we can to stop.
But what does that mean, though? Has the US basically become North Korea then? So on the one hand, you have a population who isn't, is happy to be, to accept the main media narrative about American exceptionalism. On the other hand, you have Hollywood and art being discussed when actually, frankly, it's frankly propaganda.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of attention being paid to the way in which torture has been depicted in this film. But what I wrote today, and this was really my impression having seen the film, is that the far more disturbing and pernicious part is what you just described, which is that if you now have the CIA and the US government able to shape mass entertainment products which tens of millions of people are going to see, people who don't usually pay attention to politics, the hundreds of millions of dollars that go into these films, the incredibly manipulative techniques that shape them. Have the CIA start to use mass entertainment now to propagate the citizenry about its policies, about the rightness of its perspective, to view us as this objectively good force and all of our enemies as this objective evil, so that whatever we do to them is justified. That is incredibly pernicious. That's not just state propaganda of the kind the CIA has been engaging in for decades. It's unprecedentedly effective propaganda because it's now merging Hollywood and the U.S. government. And that's exactly what this film project is. They relied almost exclusively on the CIA. They got secret information from the CIA that it was refusing to release to courts or activist groups in the name of secrecy. There was incredibly close cooperation. And as is always true, whenever someone embeds in an agency or gets this special access, they pay it back in kind through the message being so accommodating to the interest and agenda of the CIA.